Welcome to this enthralling journey through the history of beer. Today we will explore how beer evolved from ancient civilizations to the Middle Ages and beyond, and how it shaped societies and cultures along the way. Let's start by traveling back to ancient times, around 7000 BCE. Beer has been a part of human history for millennia. In ancient China, evidence suggests that malted rice was mixed with honey and fruits to create an early form of beer. But it was in ancient Mesopotamia where beer brewing truly flourished. The Sumerians, who inhabited Mesopotamia, revered beer so much that they had a goddess of beer, Ninkasi. They even created one of the oldest surviving beer recipes in the form of a hymn to her. In ancient Egypt, beer was a daily staple and was even used as a form of currency. Workers who built the pyramids were often paid in beer. It was consumed by adults and children alike and played a significant role in religious rituals. Beer was considered a gift from the gods, and breweries were often attached to temples. The ancient process of brewing beer was quite different from what we know today. It involved fermenting grains with water and allowing the natural yeast in the air to ferment the sugars. The result was a thick porridge-like beverage that was both nourishing and refreshing. The ancient Egyptians used barley and emmer wheat, and the brewing process was considered both an art and a science. As civilizations grew, so did the spread of beer. The Babylonians, Greeks, and Romans all had their versions of beer. However, the Romans and Greeks were more fond of wine and often considered beer to be a barbarian drink. Despite this, beer continued to be popular among the common people. In Europe, various tribes and cultures brewed beer. The Celts, Germanic tribes, and Slavs all had their brewing traditions. Beer was often flavored with different herbs and spices, and each region had its unique recipe. As we move into the early Middle Ages, the brewing process began to evolve. Ale was a common beverage, brewed with malt, and often mixed with herbs known as grut. However, the true transformation in the history of beer came with the introduction of hops into the brewing process. Hops not only added flavor, but also acted as a preservative, allowing beer to be stored for longer periods. This was a game changer, as it allowed for the trade of beer over long distances. The practice of brewing beer with hops seems to have originated in Bavaria and Bohemia around the 8th century. From there it spread across Europe, particularly in the Holy Roman Empire. Monasteries played a significant role in the spread of beer brewing. While they were not the largest producers of beer, they were instrumental in documenting the brewing process and spreading the knowledge. Monks in monasteries were among the first to write about brewing with hops. They also contributed to the stability and continuity of beer production. Monasteries became centers of brewing excellence, and many of the beers they produced are still celebrated today. As beer brewing spread across Europe, it began to have a significant cultural and economic impact. In many regions, beer replaced ale as the beverage of choice. However, this transition was not always smooth. Many local rulers were initially resistant to the spread of beer brewing because they had been taxing grut used in ale brewing, and the shift to hops, which could be foraged from the wild, threatened this income. Despite this, the popularity of beer continued to grow. In the trade-oriented regions of the Low Countries and northern German cities, beer became an essential commodity. The preservation properties of hops allowed beer to be traded over long distances, and it became a lucrative business. This led to the establishment of breweries, and beer became an integral part of the economy. As beer brewing techniques evolved, so did the variety of beer styles. Different regions began to develop their unique styles of beer, often influenced by the local ingredients available. In Belgium, for example, a wide range of beer styles emerged, including Trappist beers, which were brewed in monasteries. In Germany, the purity law known as Reinheitsgebot was established, dictating that beer could only be made from water, barley, and hops. Beer also played a significant role in social life. Taverns and pubs became common meeting places where people would gather to drink beer and socialize. Beer festivals, such as Oktoberfest in Germany, became significant cultural events. Beer was not just a drink, it was a social lubricant that brought people together. The Industrial Revolution brought significant changes to beer brewing. The advent of new technologies made it possible to brew beer on a much larger scale. Bottled beer became widely available, and the transportation of beer improved with the advent of railways. In the modern era, the craft beer movement has taken the world by storm. Micro-breweries and homebrewers are experimenting with various ingredients and techniques to create a plethora of beer styles and flavors. Beer has left an indelible mark on human history. From the ancient grains fermented by the banks of the Nile to the hop-infused brews of medieval Europe, beer has flowed through the annals of human history, quenching thirsts and bringing people together. As beer evolved, so did the understanding of the science behind it. The discovery of yeast and its role in fermentation by Louis Pasteur in the 19th century was a breakthrough. This led to the development of more consistent brewing processes. Brewers began to understand the chemistry of beer, including the roles of various enzymes, the malting process, and the importance of sanitation in brewing. The early 20th century saw a major setback for the beer industry in the United States with the advent of Prohibition. From 1920 to 1933, the production, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages were banned. This had a devastating effect on the beer industry. Many breweries were forced to close, and the knowledge and skills of generations of brewers were lost. After Prohibition was repealed, the beer industry struggled to recover, and it took decades for American beer to regain its diversity and quality. In the latter half of the 20th century, beer began to cross borders like never before. Brands like Heineken, Budweiser, and Guinness became global names. The globalization of beer was driven by advances in transportation, marketing, and the growth of multinational breweries. However, this globalization also led to a homogenization of beer, with many traditional styles and regional breweries struggling to compete. In response to the dominance of large-scale breweries and the lack of diversity in beer styles, the craft beer movement emerged in the late 20th century. This movement was characterized by small-scale independent breweries focused on quality, flavor, and traditional brewing methods. The United States led the way. With a boom in microbreweries and brewpubs, this craft beer revolution spread across the world, reinvigorating old styles and creating new ones. Today, beer is experiencing a renaissance. The craft beer movement continues to thrive, and consumers are more knowledgeable and discerning than ever. There is an incredible diversity of beer styles available, from traditional Belgian Trappist beers to American IPAs to experimental sour ales. Additionally, there is a growing interest in pairing beer with food, much like wine. Beer festivals and homebrew competitions are more popular than ever, and even the most remote corners of the world have access to a diverse selection of beers. As we look to the future, it is clear that beer will continue to evolve. Sustainability is becoming a significant focus, with breweries looking to reduce their environmental impact. New ingredients and techniques are constantly being explored. There is also a growing interest in the health aspects of beer, with the development of low-alcohol and non-alcoholic beers. Additionally, as consumers become more health-conscious, there is a trend towards more transparent labeling and the use of organic ingredients. As we conclude our journey through the history of beer, it is evident that this beverage has been an integral part of human civilization. From the ancient banks of the Nile to the modern craft breweries, beer has been a constant companion in our journey through history. With its rich heritage and endless capacity for reinvention, beer will undoubtedly continue to play a central role in societies around the world. So, let us raise a glass to beer, a symbol of human ingenuity, culture, and the timeless pursuit of enjoyment. Cheers!